Hey, good evening. This is the Walpole Zoning Board of Appeals. Tonight is Wednesday, April 26th. It is 7 p.m. The one case we have tonight is case number 2021, Wall Street Development Corp., 48 Burns Ave, and Union Street, Brook Lane, and Burns Ave parcels. On remand from the Housing Appeals Committee, request for project change amended to the comprehensive permit under Mass General Laws 40B. This is a revised plan moving the point of access to Brook Lane for the construction of 20 single-family dwellings instead of the previously approved 32 townhouse units within 6 buildings accessed from Burns Ave. So what we're going to do tonight is we have a list of waivers that the applicant has requested, and we've done this before, where we're going to go through the waivers, and if it's one that we can easily say, yes, that one is approved, we'll check it off as approved. And if not, if it is one that we don't want to approve, we'll say we're not going to approve that waiver. And then we'll also have ones that we're going to come back and have further discussion on them. Okay.
Mr.
Judy?
Chairman, I'll be recusing myself.
Okay, thank you. Also, tonight, the 5 board members that are here, we have Tim Hegler, Drew Delaney, I'm John Lee, Bob Fitzgerald, and Mark Major. They will be the voting members on this project. Okay. Mr. Petrosi, good evening. Do you want to add something?
Petrosi for Wall Street Development, and I'll prepare to go through the waivers, however you want to start, if you have a particular area where you want to focus on. But in order, we have this organized with the waivers from the subdivision rules and regulations first, and we can touch on those and then get into the zoning waivers that we've requested following that, because everything runs into one another. So, under the first section of the subdivision rules and regulations, we've asked for the waiver of the fees, since we've paid quite a bit of fees for the 40B application. Section 3-1 requires a municipal systems impact analysis. We've asked for a waiver.
Well, hold on. So the first one, we've had this list. In fact, this is pretty much the same list that you submitted with the original application.
Correct, there's no changes.
There's no changes.
Right.
So even though the plan has changed, your request for waivers has not changed.
Yeah, the only changes to the plan were pushing the buildings back a little bit. And the waivers have not changed, in other words.
So the way we're going to do this, and I'm glad you're here tonight, and I see you have counsel with you. You don't have to. You don't have to walk us through these.
Okay, so you've had them and you know what they are.
We've had time to review them.
Okay.
And as I already said, what we're going to do is we're going to go through these waivers, and
Okay.
we'll go through, as I think Mr. Delaney just said, the low-hanging fruits, the ones that are going to be an easy yes, an easy no, and then we'll have a discussion on the ones that are probably
Okay.
more complicated.
Fair enough. You
Okay.
ask any questions you want.
Okay, thank you. And just for other people in the audience, this is a public hearing, and obviously, we will have a chance for your comments, but at this point, we're going to, do as we've done for other 40B developments. We're going to go through the list of waivers and try to narrow it down right from the start. And I talked to town council earlier about this, and that's the appropriate way we've done it in the past. Okay. Okay, so the first one, subdivision fees, fee schedule. The applicant is asking for no fees. In the past, we have not waived this one. Does anybody have any comments on this, whether they think we should waive it or not? In the past, we have not waived it, and I would be in favor of, in this one, not waiving this fee, the fees either. Patrick?
The only one I would say with this one is I don't think the board's dealt with a 40B subdivision before, but you are right. I think the board did receive an application fee originally when this project came forward. So it's gone through a few different a few different changes, a few different phases, but whatever the board chooses on that, honestly.
Okay. Does anybody want to waive the fees on this?
No.
Okay. Next one.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear, was there a discussion on it, or?
Yeah, I said I wasn't in favor of waiving the fees, and I asked if anybody wanted to discuss anything about waiving the fees.
Can I ask a question of Patrick on this, or of the board?
Sure.
Too? Is this fee here an application fee under subdivision control?
Mm-hmm.
So how could it even possibly be applicable if we paid an application fee? You can't pay two application fees. I mean, you pay an application fee for the administrative expense, you can't pay it two. You set one for 40B, so
Yep.
you can't have us pay a different one as well.
Town council?
Yeah, I tend to agree.
Okay.
Okay.
I was thinking a little bit of the same. Obviously, the applicant has paid a fee initially when they applied, and so that is their application fee.
Do the fees go to cover anything specific that we would not have them for?
I know, that's what I was trying to think about when I was looking at the fee. It's a little weird the way it's,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the original fees that were paid, but it
Right.
was a while ago. Those have largely been.
I think that's the only question, but, the point is, and I should introduce myself, sorry, Mr. Chair, George Pucci from KP Law, right? There is a valid point about that the application fee that applied is the comprehensive permit application fee. And the fact that it involves the subdivision is part of the 40B process. And then the other issue is, as you're kind of looking at, is, well, what were those fees for? But the applicant also paid a peer review fee for this. So, my initial opinion on it is I would tend to agree with Attorney Tallerman.
Okay. There's also fees for connecting to water connections and sewer connections.
Different.
Separate.
Right, it's different, but under that line of thought, why would we not waive those?
Those would be separate fees that are applicable under the, your jurisdiction. So a lot of times they'll request a waiver for those fees or a relaxation. Typically, the boards don't grant those. So if, any fee that would apply that isn't specifically waived would otherwise apply, like a connection fee or anything like that. So it's a different animal than the original application fee. I'd have to look at the regulations in question, though, about, is that a true application fee or is it something else?
Okay.
Come back to it?
Yep.
Well, I think the difference is that, like, the fees that are associated with, like, the administrative review of an application, the technical review of an application, I believe is what this definitive subdivision fee is associated with. Whereas fees for connections and things, or inspections and things like that, are different in kind, right? They're sort of intended to make sure that the work was done appropriately and that it's safe, or whatever the various category is. So I think, I tend to agree that to the extent these fees are associated with administrative review or technical review of the application, I think the peer review fee has, sort of covers that, as well as the application fee for the 40B.
Sure. I believe you have experience in subdivision plans?
Okay, the subdivision fees that you see in there.
Please identify yourself for the,
Yeah. Jack Conroy, 3840 Burns. The fees you see in there aren't just necessarily review. What you've got is, you go to a subdivision, it's the engineering costs that you're gonna incur for all your inspections, for everything they have to do as the road goes along. It isn't just somebody call upstairs reviewing a plan. These are based upon the engineering department's work that goes into it. So probably 80% of the fees that I was part of way back when we conducted these, we figured out what a planner would be, what administrative, and then we figured out what they have to do, because you've got all sorts of inspections there. You got your water, your sewer, because this is gonna be a public road. So it's like paying a clerk of the works. So these fees aren't just reading like they're trying to say it is. This is after it's approved, if it does get approved, for the cost it's gonna cost upstairs to do all the inspections that go on out there. Drainage, sewer, water, you know what I'm talking about, soil. So this isn't just a fee. This is what's gonna be incurred by the engineering department, probably 80%.
Yeah, you typically will build that into your permit, though. You've done it before. You'll have that, final plan review for conformance with, if you have an approval with conditions. And typically, a peer review fee will be built into that, that you have. So that would be a condition in your permit. So my preliminary assessment is, I'd recommend the waiver, but I will look at the regulations.
And George beat me by that much. We would expect, and I've seen his form of draft decision, and certainly when I draft decisions for boards, all that post-permit cost of inspection, further peer review of plans, we expect to bear that cost. That's usually a permit condition that, through your 53G fund, that we would be bearing that cost. We expect that. So you're not going to ever be left having to bear your own costs for third-party inspection of our work. I mean, some of it might be done in-house, but whatever's not done in-house, if you have to use an outside professional, we'd expect that. That's typical.
Okay. Well, I thought that was going to be an easy one. So, Town Council, George, I think you're saying you're going to look into that one? So
I mean, my opinion is what it is, but I'm going to read the regulations and see if that is truly an application fee.
Okay.
And if it is, I would recommend the waiver. And again, these other types of review fees you're going to have as part of your permit. You don't need that to be built into the application fee for a subdivision.
I guess I'd just go back to when this project initially came forward, there was the comprehensive permit application fee, which for a limited dividend organization would have been a $5,000 base fee and then $200 per market rate unit. So, I mean, I'll have to go through it. I think it was 36 units that were initially proposed back in 2019, 2018. So that
what-
application fee was what?
For the market rate, it would be 27 units.
Yeah,
right? So-
it comes out to like around 10,400, and I have to go back through, this predates me, but that would have been the initial application fee for the project.
But according to, excuse me, Chairman.
go ahead.
But according to how I'm reading this subdivision fee, it's closer to 57,000? Is it per unit or per lot?
Oh, per lot.
Apologize. Because at 32 units, at roughly 15 to 1,800. So we're giving them,
It's down to 20 units then.
It's down to 20 units, and they've already paid, what I'm hearing is, they've already paid basically a filing fee, and, is that, but I'm not sure that's the same as the subdivision fee is.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion is the same, that you're not going to be able to apply two application fees.
So,
And if you think about that, your typical subdivision is not an affordable, doesn't have an affordability component to it and a profit limitation. So, yeah, you're giving up a lot of money, but you're not giving up anything if it gets overturned by the Housing Appeals Committee, which I
No.
would guarantee you they would overturn that.
I agree, I guess I was just trying to weigh out whatever the engineering costs or town burden costs for reviewing it, and I agree, just trying to evaluate that.
Yeah, and the way you're protected on that, again, is you will have the ability to have peer review fees as needed when those final plans come back before you.
okay. So, what I'd like to do with that one, and board members, speak up if you have another idea. We can hold that. Town council said he's going to look at it, but I see where town council's leaning on this. I just want to get clarification on that. Can we move to the second one? Okay. Next one, municipal systems impact analysis. In the past, we have waived this, and a lot of times it's for larger projects, and I think I'm just speaking for myself, I think it's appropriate that we waive this. Anybody else have thoughts on that?
No, agreed.
Everybody? Drew?
Nope, I'm good.
So that's a waive. Okay, let's talk about the dead-end streets. Dead-end streets shall not exceed 750 feet in length, and the waiver is to allow a dead-end street of 845 feet, and we've gone back and forth during the public hearings about this with the fire department's letter saying it's about public safety, and where do board members feel they come down on this one, this request for a waiver? Bob?
I'll start. So at the last hearing on this, I mentioned that the fire department's comment letter didn't really explain why the waiver shouldn't be granted in this case. They just have a statement that says they consistently have not supported a waiver request. And I don't, in my view, I'm not sure that that's enough. We had asked them to explain specific safety concerns with the length of this particular road. And as far as I understand it, we did not get any feedback from the fire department on that point. So, you know, I don't really see a basis at this point for not granting it, given that we don't really have from our sort of town expertise on fire safety and that sort of thing, which appears to be the basis for this distance limitation, though it's not evident from their comments. So I guess I'd be inclined to grant it on that basis, because we really don't have a solid safety rationale from anyone as to why this particular design or length is not safe for this development.
Okay. On that, the other thing that I look at is under 40B, the applicant is allowed to bypass local zoning, although it might pain me and pain us. The fact is, that's the whole idea of 40B, that they are allowed to bypass that, and the 750 is a local zoning bylaw. And everything you said about safety, I'm aware of and concerned of, but I'm not sure that if that wouldn't be, you know, overturned if we denied it. So, other people have thoughts on the 750?
I agree with what you guys just said.
Yeah, agree.
Okay. Sure.
The way I've taken the position is, he doesn't owe you anything. He's the fire deputy chief, 750, done. That's what he's decided other subdivisions. He doesn't have to owe extra explanations. Building inspector says you can't do this, it's done. He's been consistent with everything else we've had. So to go against the fire chief, now you've gone against, if something happens, I'm not gonna go down that road, but, you know, there's a reason he did it. But he doesn't have to tell you why. He is the deputy fire chief. Boom, 750, that's it. So guess what else happens? Now you're gonna give this, he's got another one he's gonna try for more than 750. Where does it end? You've asked that person, deputy chief, for his expertise. He's an expert at fire. He told you 750, that's the max. That's what it should be. It should never be questioned by a board. I don't think, the housing, let them overturn. I don't think they can, because they're gonna be questioned fire. You don't question that. It's he's the professional. Can't go willy-nilly, and you've now just said, we'll go an extra 90 feet, not a big deal. I don't believe that's your position to do. Your position is to take everything from everybody else. He's a professional. He's at 750, done. Okay? We have letters. He's done it on other subdivisions too. So this is not, we're not picking on this at all. They knew this going in, 100%. So now they're just gonna go like this? I don't know how you can bypass the professional, and it isn't up to him. Why hasn't anybody questioned the applicant to fully knowing that the fire chief's position is 750 feet, but they just went like that and said, we're gonna go 840? No one's questioned that. Who do they think they are? They keep pushing, pushing, pushing. At some point, you gotta say, enough's enough. That's a very important item. It's probably one of the most important you're gonna talk about. The other stuff is zoning stuff. This is what the deputy fire chief, I keep going, fire chief, but that's what it is. But more importantly is, why are we worried about what Paul Barry says? Why did the applicant decide I'm going over 750 feet? Why? Does he need this to make this a go? No, he's trying to get a couple more units out of it. We all know that. But he made his own decision. 750? Nah, I'm gonna do what I want. And now we have a deputy fire chief that's his profession, 750 feet. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I just say one brief thing? The original project that was approved by this board had a dead-end street in excess of 990 feet. So we've taken the position that we've improved the situation beyond what was previously approved. And with respect to other waivers granted, I mean, you could go through the recent decisions of the planning board, one in particular off of Fisher Street where the dead-end street's well in excess of 3,000 feet. So I think you just need to take everything in perspective, what's in the fact. Ross Commons.
Oh, that isn't. I guess you don't know how to tell dead ends. All right.
Mr. Chair? I guess I'd put this back to the applicant, but maybe as a suggestion, if the board feels that they would want to grant a waiver, if emergency access is a possibility to the site?
No, because
No.
I think that's an issue with the whole Burns Ave
Yep.
access. I don't want to go near that aspect. And, you know, that would be saying that we're giving emergency access over disputed property. And I would stay away from that.
True.
Okay. How do, board, let's, the next part is allow the cul-de-sac at the closure end turnaround having an outside street line diameter of 94 feet. And I think it's under normal, I thought the normal diameter was 104 feet. So,
That's correct.
oh, there it is, 104 feet. So, here's one of the things that I'm having this is my concern, that the applicant has said that they plan to have this as a town-accepted roadway, but they're not building it to the known requirements for a town-accepted roadway. And I think that, you know, we're being put into a position where if we approve this, then it would go to town meeting, and people would be saying, why is this here? Because we would not normally approve this as a town-accepted road.
I don't know if town council might weigh in on this, but I don't think we can, I think the applicant can request that it be accepted as a public road to the road commissioners, but that it's not an automatic approval, and anything we say in this proceeding really doesn't affect that. They could choose not to for whatever reasons that they so chose. So I think it's perhaps the applicant's hope that it'll become a public road, but it may not if the road commissioners don't accept it as such.
I've had conditions requiring it remain private.
So the zoning board could
Do you have a
Make
problem
a-
with
I don't have a problem with it. I take the position that even though no one really ever appeals that condition, that it's not really, couldn't possibly be binding on future owners, but I think our position, and again, we're going to sell these units and it's a homeowners association and it's likely going to be private. I took the position last time that of course we hope that it would become a public way. Why wouldn't we? We think that the homeowners in this project would get the same benefits of other people. And what we focused on with the roadway and the cul-de-sac and everything else is to make sure that the biggest fire truck can work its way around there, and we've demonstrated that. We're not suggesting that this decision have a condition that this be made a public way, nor could you. The select board has to lay out this roadway, and they could just choose not to on your recommendation, on the planning board's recommendation, and it never even gets to town meeting. So we're not saying that we're building this to be a safe roadway. And whatever happens in the future happens in the future. If you insist on making it private, it's going to be private until it's accepted. So I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's binding on future property owners as a matter of law, but I don't think we're going to fight about that issue. What we're talking about here in terms of the cul-de-sac length diameters, can we get a fire truck around there? And I think we've demonstrated we can, and that's the key thing here that we're talking about in terms of measuring whether we get a few feet off on that. We expect there's going to be a no parking requirement. I think our engineer has shown that, and I don't think there's a comment from anyone in the fire department that they can't get their fire truck around there. So that's what we're focusing on. If you want to put some language in there about not being accepted as a public way or not recommending that it be accepted as a public way, it's fine. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I've had conditions commonly that, you know, the roadway will remain private, conditions like that, and, you know, I'm sure Jay can send me cases if he knows otherwise, but I've never, number one, I've never litigated the issue, and number two, I don't know of any cases that say that you can't do that. And I have had it typically, you know, in a case like this, that you're granting certain waivers under the standards that would otherwise apply to a public way or acceptance after approval of a subdivision. And I have had it that, you know, they do put that condition in, that it will remain a private way. Infrastructure shall remain private, all that type of thing. Trash collection will be done private. You know, it depends on what the issue is, but, you know, I haven't seen that overturned, so.
Yeah, true.
I guess I just have a concern with the applicant asking for waivers of extending a roadway, minimizing the width of the roadway, creating this scenario where, yes, you may meet a national standard or a state standard, but it doesn't fit with the local area and the town requirements, and that you have properties that are 5 to 10 feet apart from one another. So now not only do you have multiple residential buildings that could be potentially a fire hazard, but you're also going against the avenue to provide a safe, adequate, meeting town standards way of accessing those areas. So from a safety standpoint, I don't believe that this waiver should be granted.
So, couple things. One, I think we're actually as wide, if not wider, than Burns roads like that and other roads in town. I also don't think there's any evidence that there's a fire hazard here. The fact that there's some kind of one-size-fits-all, and I don't mean that in a pejorative sense in terms of roadway width, doesn't mean that we haven't created a roadway where your biggest fire apparatus can't get down and turn around. That's what we're focusing on. It is, again, incredibly typical in 40Bs, as George can tell you, that the minor waivers of roadway width or cul-de-sac length and cul-de-sac diameters are waived, provided that we still demonstrate that a fire truck can navigate, and I believe we've met that standard. So it's pretty typical fare under 40B. I'm not, you know, telling George anything that he doesn't know already. We expect to be measured on on public safety. I don't think there's any demonstrable evidence that we've done anything that isn't, it's a pretty short road generally, that isn't safe and doesn't provide for adequate access by your largest fire vehicle.
Sure, Mr. Conroy.
Two things. Do you have something from the fire department that says this is okay, that it can turn? Because that's a big thing we always have with cul-de-sacs.
Yes.
They already says they can make their biggest truck.
They submitted a letter
Okay.
with that.
Now, one thing that was said here, I just want you to understand, they talked about homeowners association. You can't have a homeowners association on a public road. It's not like the old days where we had not age qualified, but the open space, like up at, off of Fisher Street. There's no reason to have a homeowners association. I don't know how you're gonna have a homeowners association. Because if it's gonna be public at some point, you own yours, you own yours, you own yours. I heard the word association. I don't know how this could happen if they wanna go forward. Because I don't know what the association's gonna have.
We're gonna be here all night if we keep going back and forth, but it's up to you how you wanna go, Chair.
I want to make sure people have a chance to comment.
No, I don't mean Jack,
No,
not
go ahead.
respectfully, if Jay gets up and answers everything that everybody says, that, you know,
Yeah, I mean, homeowners association happened in every project until they're made public. It's pretty standard fare for every planning board is generally aware of homeowners association. The last thing I'll say on the roadway width kind of thing is, we're not making anything narrower than what you've already approved for the prior version of this project. My understanding, and I know emergency access is an issue for the remand, but again, we haven't done anything worse than something you already said yes to. So.
So, Drew, it sounds like you've got concerns about the 750 safety.
I think it provides a safety issue there. I think granting them that waiver and having those buildings as close as they are together, that possibly could provide a serious safety hazard there. I agree with them that they've met the turn radius. I agree with them that there's nothing that doesn't say the state doesn't allow to extend it past 750, but I guess I would be concerned when properties are that close in proximity to each other, that when one goes, a bunch are gonna go. And the problem with that is now you have a limited or a lesser wide roadway, and you have also extended past the 750. And I don't know where 750 came from, but I assume that Deputy Chief Barry does have some evidence behind that, and I guess I would just feel as though that's a safety concern, but if the board feels differently.
No, how do other board members feel on this issue of the 750?
Feel better if it was less dense. Agree with Drew's point there. So I think we should think about potentially other waivers.
Bob? I'm looking at the deputy chief's letter right here, so you are too. I think we all are looking at that right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question for the board is, and George can remind us on sort of our limited ability to condition or deny a 40B, and one of them is safety related. And as I sort of agree instinctively that, you know, units that are closer together, you know, might present a greater fire hazard, or, you know, maybe the shorter roadway would be better. But, you know, I sort of made a point at the last hearing that we needed to hear specifically from the fire department, not just conclusory statements like that aren't really even tied to this plan, but just say things like, we generally don't grant this. I mean, what we need in this case is a specific reason why this specific design and arrangement of buildings is not safe. And I don't see anything in the fire department memo that would rise to that level. There's talk about if the roadway width is granted, then we request you do the following. So that doesn't seem to be a grave concern to them, provided there's no parking permitted. The last point they say is the turn analysis still needs to be stamped and signed, but it does indicate fire apparatus can access and egress the new extension. So I just don't see anything in the letter, and I'm not a firefighter or would pretend to be one, so I'm trying to elicit comment that's helpful for us from our departments, and this is what we got, and I don't know, based on that, I don't see a hard and fast reason for denying that waiver.
I think we should all focus on point 2, where the deputy chief says we have consistently not supported a waiver request for a dead end greater than 750 feet, and that's what I come to. Would I like to see some more? But they've been consistent on that. And I think one of the things that I look at is, well, nobody's going to say that, we're not being fair to, this project, for whatever reason. Okay.
Back, because I thought that was great.
Town council, do you want to add anything on this?
I don't want to intrude on your jurisdiction, but it depends, on if you care what happens on appeal. And I have to tell you, quite frankly, we've had this discussion before. Without a compelling local concern based on safety, more than we don't allow it, you're not going to be upheld on that, because we have to present evidence then. It's a de novo hearing at HAC, and we have to have evidence of a compelling local safety reason why we denied it. And the only problem is, a board can be cavalier about what may or may not happen at Housing Appeals Committee, but I've said this before, when you take a rigid approach as a zoning board, then in effect, the Housing Appeals Committee becomes the local permitting authority. So then all of your ability to put any reasonable conditions on it is taken away, because in the end, they strike everything that you do, and they say it's subject to compliance with state law. And that's essentially what they end up ordering you to say. And if you don't do it, then their permit becomes the permit. So, I just caution my boards that if you're willing to, have that occur, that's up to you, but it does take an awful lot of local control away when you take that position, because ultimately, they'll strike everything you do.
Okay, on this waiver, where do board members come down on this? Is this something you want to waive, deny, or hold? What do you want?
Hold.
Drew?
I'd say hold.
Bob?
I'd say waive.
Mark?
I'm right on the edge, probably waive at this point.
And I was going to go with deny, so let's, it's hold and waive. Let's hold it. We'll come back to it. Okay.
Wasn't low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. So, next one, street alignments, minimum radii of the inner street line for local streets shall be 150 feet. And this asks for 66 feet and 80 feet.
Bob, sorry, did you hold on the turnaround diameter too, or was that,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
or did you say about you
Well, this is
skipped over that one?
I think it's all three.
all three.
Hold on all three, okay, thanks.
So, next page, street alignments, and I am going to ask, Mr. Petrosi, where is this waiver? What is this, why is this one necessary?
Is it radius?
Radio.
I believe it's in the entrance coming into the, into the project. But I don't know exactly. I'm not certain that that's it, but I'm pretty sure that that's it right there. The only other radius is here.
Because it seems that when I looked at this plan earlier, it seemed like you meet that requirement, so I don't know, I don't know why you're asking for this if you don't need it.
Well, the engineer told me to ask for it because he told me I needed it, so unfortunately, he's not here tonight, but I think he tells me that it's necessary, so.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we actually do have comments from the town engineer on that. His last comment letter on page 3, going over sheet 3, lot layout. It's comment number 16.
Okay. So the town engineer is recommending that we do not recommend waiver from the minimum 150 sideline curb radius.
However, I was gonna say, however, if the waiver is granted, post the speed limit on Brook Lane should be 15 miles per hour.
Okay.
So that's his follow-up. It doesn't recommend waiving it, but if it was to be waived, he'd recommend a 15 mile per hour speed limit, which could be a condition.
So with that being said, I think that although it's not recommended, the solution for that is to post 15 miles an hour as a condition, so I think that, at least to me, that's one that I would be in favor of waiving. Other board members?
So we would put in a condition of 15 miles per hour?
Yep, that's for all of Brook Lane at that point.
Yep.
Anybody else?
I agree.
Okay. So that one is a waive. Next one, width and grade of the street. The applicant requests that instead of 46 feet for the primary street, it be 40 feet. Discussion on that? Oh, let's see what the town engineer had on that. Does anybody see anything on that from the town engineer?
I see.
Mr. Chair, we asked the applicant if they reviewed and incorporated these into the plans at this point, or, this is dated April 5th, like a few weeks back.
We haven't seen it. We can ask the applicant. Yep.
No, I don't know, some of it is just changing labels on plans and things like that. I don't know, a lot of this might just be,
Have you seen this memo from the town engineer dated April 5th? And have
A
you-
lot of the comments are administrative in nature. We had a work session with, as the board knows, early on, and the town engineer didn't have any objections. He said he could live with the 40-foot right-of-way. So that's how I recall it. Do you recall that way,
Yeah,
Patrick?
I was gonna say, Drew, does that make sense?
At that time, we were almost we were trying to deal with the setback of the houses from the right-of-way. We had actually proposed even a narrower right-of-way, like down at 36 feet or 32, and he said definitely not, but he could live with the 40. That's what I,
believe 40
that's what
was
I
the
took away
absolute
from the
minimum.
meeting. Excuse me?
I believe 40 was the absolute minimum.
Yeah, so that, I think that's kind of, and that's consistent with what Burns Avenue is and what Brook Lane is. They're both 40 feet.
Okay, 40 feet. How do people feel about that waiver? Mark?
In favor of it.
Fine with it.
Okay.
Hey, next one, roadway. The applicant requests to allow minimum paved roadway width of 22 feet, where normally it would be 26 feet. What was Patrick, was that brought up at the meeting also with the town engineer?
The roadway,
Definitely has comment on
I know we talked about the depth for the driveways. I don't think we talked about roadway exactly, but I know we have comments from fire on that. I believe we have comments from engineer as well.
it. Yeah, it's in number 2 on the second page.
Okay.
Says we have,
So, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
I guess I'd start looking at the fire department letter. Fire department letter does not support a waiver of the 26 feet. However, if a waiver is granted, they request that street parking be prohibited and that pavement markings and signs shall be installed and maintained. Additionally, request a sign noting no on-street parking permitted to be required near the entrance of the new roadway extension. So that's something from fire. They don't approve of a waiver from 26. However, as long as there's no street parking, it seemed to be a solution to that. From the town engineer regarding comment number 2, the statement is, with regard to roadway standards, site plan comment number 5, we have acquiesced to a Cape Cod berm because of anticipated on-street parking, as well as the narrowing pavement section 22 verse 26 required in planning board rules and regulations governing the subdivision of land. The remainder of the roadway construction details appear to be generally conform. So, kind of a little bit contradiction, but I guess it
we're
would
talking
go-
about the contradiction of on-street parking?
Yeah, I would say,
Which is exactly a concern
yeah.
when we talk about that. You know,
And again, for the record,
Okay.
please, if you want to prohibit on-street parking,
yeah, we can prohibit on-street parking, but it becomes an enforcement issue, and
no different than any other project, though. You're treating us the same as you would any other project where you're prohibiting it.
no, if it was another project, it would be being built to the width that is required, so that even if people do park on the street, it's not going to interfere with fire apparatus.
Right.
So what we're doing is we're creating a neighborhood where we sit here on a April night saying nobody park on the street, but the reality is that if this is built, people are gonna be parking on the street, and
Right, no different than the project you already approved once here first, and then same width as the roads all around it. I get that you don't, the fact that someone did it wrong in the past doesn't mean that you repeat that, but it's pretty consistent, especially with a roadway that's so short. So I get enforcement issues, but, you know, we're just trying to live by the same rules that other folks are living by.
but anybody coming in for a new subdivision would be building the road wider.
It's not a 40B-A, but towns do waive even under regular subdivision all the time. And again, this is pretty typical under 40B, and again, I'll just reiterate, you've already approved 22 feet once for this project, so. And that's I mean, I'm not asking for, and I hope we don't go back to the HAC, but that's obviously fairly relevant.
Mr. Conroy.
Quick question. Is it 22 feet paved, or is it 22 feet from berm to berm? Because I've been down that road before. When you do your paving for your Cape Cod, you put everything on, you lock your berm in, it's 2 foot wide on either side, then you put the top coat on. And everybody goes, yeah, it's 22 feet to the back of it. Is the roadway on the plan exactly 22 feet from the start of each berm, or is it 22 feet to the back?
22 feet to the back of the berms.
No, it's
It is, okay.
Okay, hold on.
24 feet total.
Okay, that's why I just asked. We agree on one thing. All right, because that's been on other projects. I just wanted to make sure I didn't have a set of the plans. but-
Okay, yep, Drew already circled it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So how do people feel, board members feel about the 22 feet?
Seems tight.
What's that?
Said it seems tight
It seems tight.
with the density of the
In-
houses in the driveway length.
See, my problem is that we're almost negotiating against ourselves because we already approved 22 feet and
But not single family.
I don't,
Not single family with tiny driveways and no street parking.
yeah.
It's just bad ingredients, right?
Bob?
Well, I think since we granted it previously and the applicant's willing to post signage, whether or not people comply with it is, obviously another question, but I think I'd be inclined to grant it subject to the condition that the signage be installed per the fire department's request.
If we already approved it, why would we, like you said, what are we
I mean,
doing now?
right. I think that it doesn't put us in a strong position, unfortunately.
Mr. Chairman, one thing that I will say about that, when the board approved the 22 feet previously, if you recall, those were one-car garages for 32 units. These homes have two-car garages, so there's 4 parking spaces per unit, where before there was just 2. So I think we've tried to address that parking issue, and we'll do our, we'll post the signage for no parking. And particularly during the wintertime, the town doesn't allow any parking on streets from like November 1st to April. During the winter season, they don't allow parking on the streets. So,
Cheryl Hayes, Montville, 8 Brook Lane. I guess my question is, with like the no parking, if that's enforced, and the 15 miles an hour on Brook Lane, like some of those things, like you had just mentioned, you can put the signage or you can put conditions or waivers, but at the end of the day, it becomes an enforcement issue. And I'm just like wondering if the consideration is also like, what is that spillage like onto Brook Lane, like for the residents who are living there? And you might not have the answer to that, but I'm like, are you?
It's a concern.
Right.
And when we're looking at a development like this, that is absolutely a concern for us. And,
I just want to make sure that,
No.
like, I hear projects, so I always think of like that line, like where the entrance is, to the project, and I'm like, oh.
Brook Lane is a public way.
Right, so I'm just kind of like, oh, are they thinking about, Brook Lane itself? So I just wanted to
Yeah,
make
no.
sure.
I mean, my understanding would be that the speed limit on the signage would apply to the entirety of Brook Lane, not just from the entrance to the project beyond.
I guess, like, I'm like more thinking of like the parking, because I'm like, well, if there's no parking,
Well, same,
like
yeah.
in the project area, well, where are people gonna park? They're gonna park on Brook Lane. So, you know, I was like, 3 homes, 3 driveways, not a lot of places to park. So I was just wondering if that was also like the way you were thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we're very much thinking about it like that.
It could be another condition is the construction of parking.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can you all pull your mics up close? I can't hear words, we can't hear what Mark is saying, and sometimes we can't hear George. So can you all pull your mics closer?
Sure.
And speak
Okay.
louder?
Yep. Okay. So on the 22 feet, my concern is we already approved 22 feet previously, and I think, I feel that we're almost, I feel that we're stuck with that, unfortunately. Other board members?
I'd say it was a different composite board at the time that approved that, and I think we didn't have the same peer review, and I think it's still a safety hazard.
Okay. So you would,
Not be in favor of granting that waiver.
I look at it, you already waived it. Can't get around that part.
Bob?
I'd be in favor of granting.
Mark?
I don't like it, but I don't think it would hold up if we.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, I don't think it would hold up if we waived it, or if we didn't waive it.
Okay. So, sounds like board members, myself included, would approve that one.
Yep.
Next one, the curbs and gutters, allow Cape Cod berm throughout as opposed to granite curbing. So, that's how it's been shown in the plans.
I think Cape Cod berms promote on-street parking, whereas granite curbing doesn't. I think if they're gonna ask the town to maintain this roadway, it should be granite curbing, because it's a better product and it upholds better over time. I think, you know, it's a cheaper product, which I understand is probably the reason that they would rather go with the Cape Cod berm. But I think it only further provides an avenue where you have a safety issue on a narrow roadway that is over length.
Other board members?
I agree with Drew.
Did Kyle have a note on this at all, anywhere? I'm not seeing it. Did.
So it was his, that goes back to his second comment on page 2. Kind of we went over that. So in regard to roadway standards, we have acquiesced to Cape Cod berm because of the anticipated on-street parking. So that was that kind of contradiction between his opinion and Paul Barry's opinion. I'd also argue, I think the board has comments from Sean Reardon, our peer review agent from Tetra Tech. Page 2 of Sean Reardon's letter, site plan, section number 9. The project has requested a waiver to install Cape Cod berm instead of granite curb required for subdivisions. Cape Cod is granite curb is fundamentally more durable and effective than Cape Cod berm. We recommend the board consider acquiring a granite curb if it intends to accept the road and responsibility of its maintenance. If the road is to be maintained by the applicant or a homeowners association, Cape Cod berm is a reasonable option. So, peer review agent looking at what the applicant is asking for, I think the intention was to have it dedicated as a public road. If it is to be, peer review agents recommended keeping it as granite, whereas if it was to remain private, didn't see a problem with Cape Cod berm. And that has to do with just municipal maintenance of the road.
And we know that the intent is to have this accepted for the town, so.
Well, I think we've been clear that we have no present intention of that. We're not petitioning for it. That's so far down the road. And George has already talked about a condition, which I've already said I don't know how binding those things are over time, but we're not going to go to Housing Appeals Committee because you put in something that says the infrastructure is remaining private. I'll throw out one more thing on this topic, and something that I've done in the past, because it is a significant cost differential, very significant cost differential. And that is that to the extent that there's concern about maintenance, sometimes what we see in terms of a blend here is where a plow, and that's how they most frequently get damaged, it's going to happen here, and it's going to happen here, and potentially on this curve and the inside there. Sometimes we see a blend along the radii of requiring a more durable surface, and then the Cape Cod berm elsewhere. It's a little bit of a happy medium. The other thing I'd say about Cape Cod berm here, as to your concerns about width, especially for emergency vehicles, the Cape Cod berm is more travelable if they're trying to make haste inside the project. So there is a slight benefit for emergency vehicles. Granted, prevents the curb hop, but Cape Cod berm allows for slightly easier access by an emergency vehicle, has been my experience. So, I'll throw out there, and Lou will probably kill me for it, he's out of the room right now, but that you may want to consider the riskier parts in terms of, because that's where they're going to get damaged, is along the radii, and I'd probably wrestle them to the ground and get them to agree to something like that. But just throwing it out there, food for thought.
So it's interesting, so where you've asked for the waiver, the way I look at it, we can either grant the waiver or deny the waiver. We cannot.
Sure you could.
No, you can do it in part.
Okay,
And you can do it in part and conditioned.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, you have that, same as special permit authority, you have pretty broad authority.
I'm not telling you to do it, I'm just saying you can do it.
Right, no, I understand, but, okay, so it's not all or nothing, we can,
Yes.
I'm just trying to facilitate the discussion on it, because granite curb is enormously expensive, and
But it's
getting more and
durable
more
and-
expensive every day.
so I think we should look at a condition, if we do decide to grant that waiver, a condition of certain areas having granite curbing. And those would be, anything with a curve on it, so. Okay. Sure.
I don't know if the board members are aware, this is not just standard curbing you see on Common Street. This is the laid back that you'll see on an interstate. It's called sloped granite. You achieve the same thing you do with a Cape Cod berm. It's sloped like this, drive on it, whatever. And it's not the 20-inch by 8-inch deep that's expensive. It's the slope stuff. That's why they use it. That's why the state's using all the interstates. So it isn't vertical, it lays over, and you get the benefit of being able to drive on it, and you also get the benefit of longevity.
So, let's,
Get it from a maintenance standpoint, the upper plowing.
Yeah, like in front of my house, I live on this side of the street, Sherburne.
Yep.
It's non-existent, the berm. It has been plowed over the years, and I complain left and right, and they'll get to it whenever they get to it.
I do have granite too. So it's a small six
so
lots of it.
what we're looking at is, in the first paragraph here, slope granite edging shall be inspected continuously along the edge of the entire roadways. How do board members feel about using the slope granite? Because it does accomplish the safety, I guess, the safety issue, so people can drive over the Cape Cod berm, which sounds strange that we want to drive over a berm, but it also provides the durability. Thoughts from board members?
Was this another one that was already approved, John?
No.
Okay. I like the granite.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of waivers for this road. I think,
I can't say for certain, but it's Lou's belief that Cape Cod berm was approved the first time around. I don't know if Patrick has a recollection of that.
It might have been, but it was also a private development. So that was kind of goes back to peer review's comments.
And again,
I don't,
we're not fighting that.
Yep.
I would say that where you have excuse me, a roadway that's only 22 feet wide, that we're apparently going to grant the waiver, you would almost want Cape Cod berm so that people can pull out of the way if there is the need for fire access. I'm not in favor of it, but I don't want to create any more safety hazards with this sort of development here by putting granite curbs up that people can't pass over to get out of the way on a narrow roadway.
The granite isn't easier to pull over to the sides? I thought it was
I don't know about
sloped.
this slope granite thing, but I'm just envisioning a...
Mr. Chair, one of the, I guess something that's kind of coming up with a few of these now, and this, I don't know if the board probably doesn't need to make a decision right now, but if the board would condition this to remain a private road, that kind of helps answer some of these questions for the waivers, because we're also thinking of, is this going to be an accepted town road? And that certainly weighs a lot on how you look at these waivers. Another option is to have it remain private, and I think the counsel for the applicant has brought that up as something that they want to be opposed to. So that does change some things, I guess, in terms of thinking about it. Not everything, but...
The problem I'm having is that they've said that they want to have this as a town-accepted road, and, you know...
Correct.
It's not being built at town-accepted standards. At some point, if it goes to town meeting, people are going to be asked to vote on this, and the first thing they're going to look at it and say, is it built to town standards? And the answer is, no, it wasn't. And then they're going to say, well, how was it done like this? And I have to sit there and say, well, we gave waivers for it. And that's what's difficult on this.
I guess it would depend if the applicant agrees to a condition of having the road remain private, which...
Well, they don't have to agree. I mean,
No.
in my opinion, you can make it that, you can condition it. So,
Okay.
that's just a factor to keep in mind.
Okay, so where do people come down on the Cape Cod berm?
Waive it and condition it.
Waive and condition?
Again, I'm just a little confused on is it a hard edge granite, or is it sloped like I thought?
Some of it's, the requirement is, parts of it are sloped, but other parts would have, as you...
Like around
use the term,
drainage things?
hard edge.
Yeah. I almost
I
think
tend to
that's
agree with
safer.
Drew about given the narrow width of the road, that while it's not the preferred approach, the Cape Cod berm seems like the least intrusive in terms of people getting out of the way if they needed to in an emergency or some other situation. So, yeah, so I tend to agree with Drew on that.
agree as well.
Okay. What else on the, Mark, how do you feel about the Cape Cod berm?
Yeah, I agree with Joe. I think I'd consider waiving it if we conditioned it to have granite where it made sense, or other things.
So, Pat, in the decision, and I know you've already got the bones of a rough, not even a draft, but the start of it, is there, I'm trying to see how we say, well, we'll waive this, but I guess we waive it with the condition, and we've conditioned 40Bs before, right? Town council, that's correct.
Yeah, you waive it, granted, conditioned upon, we've done that.
So you'd waive, and then your condition would be in the body.
And the condition would be that in the curved areas, granite curbing would be used.
Yep. We usually have a section of the condition, the comprehensive permit for roadway conditions, so.
Are you comfortable with that?
I can live with that, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so waive with condition. Next one, lot size. Allow lots shown on the plan. So, based on the plan that's been submitted, those would be the lot sizes. Town engineer have comments on this?
Could this have been approved already, since the plan changed?
No, because it was
It
a
was
condo
Yeah, it was
association.
condos, right?
These are individual lots.
Mark and Bob can share it. Okay. It just shows them.
These are the lots,
And I know Mr. O'Leary questioned a bit about the lot sizes, but we looked into that, and the small lots are allowed. We did check that.
State.
What's that?
Was a state? Thought it was. a state
He was just
requirement.
taking one part of, it had to do with subdividing lots.
Got it.
But you can have small lots. Any discussion on this? Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
So a waiver for section 4.8 lot size, lots, just allow lots as shown on the plan. So would people?
There was no comment from Kyle, right? That I could find.
No.
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it's dense, but. Stand up on it.
Sidewalks, under normal subdivision, sidewalk should be constructed on both sides. This one, they're requesting allow one sidewalk on one side with a minimum width of 4 feet. Did Carl comment on this?
I was gonna say, Mr. Chair, I think I'm gonna put that back to the applicant. I don't know if that 4 feet is relevant anymore, based upon the most recent revision to the plan. I think it's a 5-foot sidewalk now. Change it to 5. Whatever. For one sidewalk, he does, but not for the 4 feet, because that's no longer relevant.
Peer review recommended that there's no grass strip.
Peer reviewer and the town engineer felt that the sidewalk should be pushed back to the right-of-way so we could provide a 2-foot grass strip between the sidewalk and the Cape Cod berm. So I think that's what our intention is, to do that. But it's not consistent with what your typical grass strip, I think, typical grass strip is like 3 feet, 3 or 4 feet. I'm not quite sure the actual dimension, but, so we're making that revision to the plan.
Because that's the next waiver.
You follow that, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, so what's the grass strip right now?
There is, well, right now, the sidewalk is up against the berm. So the grass, whatever's remaining in the right-of-way is behind the sidewalk, out of the front yard of these homes, which is, so if, what we do in the subdivisions now is we put the sidewalks at the edge of the right-of-way, or slightly in, and then the grass strip is between the curb and the sidewalk. So that's what we're gonna try to do here.
But that's not what's shown on the plan.
No, because that's just a recent comment that we just got, so it'll be in the revised plans. But there's still a waiver of the size, the width of the grass strip is still necessary.
Do you know how wide it would be if you pushed the sidewalk back?
Well, I think it's 2 feet of what the grass strip will end up being, based on, you get 24 feet with pavement and curb on Cape Cod berm, that's 24. Then you have a 5-foot sidewalk on one side, so that you're up to 29. And then so you have 11 feet on both sides of the street, right? So 5 and 3, 8. Let's see, 11. So you have 5 and 2, or something like that. It's, on one side of the street, there's going to be all grass. The other side will be sidewalk and a 2-foot grass strip, roughly. 24. Oh, yeah, actually, so it's 24 feet, and you have a 40-foot right-of-way, so that means you have 16 feet, 8 feet on each side. So you have a 5 and a 3, and then an 8 on the other side. That's what it'd be, 3-foot grass strip.
So that's consistent with what would be required anyway.
It's close. I don't
Yep.
remember the exact dimensions of what's required.
Yeah, local streets, 3 feet of grass, where they'll be down to 2 feet.
Okay. I guess I'd be in favor of, I guess the requested waiver is to allow no grass plots, so I would be inclined to deny that, but permit a 2-foot grass strip on the sidewalk side of the street.
Yep. So, we actually jumped over, we didn't,
Oh, okay.
wait, you're up to the grass plots.
Okay.
Let's just finish with, allow one sidewalk.
Yeah,
Is that,
I'm in favor of that.
I'm okay with that.
okay, so we waive that. The next one, Bob, you were right at, no grass plot, talking about the grass plot provided on each roadway. So, I guess, do you want to waive that but require a 2-foot, or do you want to deny it and require 2-foot?
I mean, I guess the decision can, we can work on the language. I mean, the waiver is a request to have no grass plots, and we're denying that, but requiring less than what is otherwise required. So in a way, we are granting a waiver from the requirement. It's just not a blanket waiver. It's just basically a waiver of one foot from the 3-foot requirement.
Okay, so,
Waiver with condition?
or,
A denial.
no,
I mean, I don't even think this waiver is valid anymore based on the
Yeah,
the new
because some
design.
sides.
Right, it's going to change.
so,
But you may know, you could have a condition on it.
Right.
a deny, could
You
you,
don't, or it's not applicable in light of the prior, the action on the prior. No longer applicable because of the action on the prior waiver, but you can have a condition about what the grass strip will be.
When it comes.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
okay, so the previous condition, which we waived, that's where we'd mentioned the 2-foot grass strip, the previous condition,
Yeah.
and then just deny this one?
Yeah.
But then, that doesn't,
They almost hold it until they fix it. Right, they're going to change the waiver.
Did you want to specify too, what was it on the, what are you conditioning? Is it 2 feet grass strip with a
It sounds like it
5-foot
would,
sidewalk, or?
5-foot sidewalk with a 2-foot grass strip. That's what
On one
is
side.
being proposed, and that's what we're in favor of.
Okay.
where you, George's way, you'd be denying the waiver and
Yeah,
condition.
just denied, it's no longer applicable, but then you're just gonna get
Yeah.
condition.
So, Mr. Chairman,
He knows that.
okay, all right,
Yeah.
yep.
That's just as long as you're noting it.
Yep.
Okay. Drew, this next one's all about you. So, so for that one, deny with the condition? Is that,
Yeah, denied is inapplicable, but then Pat's gonna put a
Okay.
condition in the permit.
okay, fine. Okay, next one, all electrical primary circuits in conduit within the right-of-way of the proposed streets. Turn to our expert on this. They don't want to, they want to allow primary conduit to within the right-of-way, not to be packed in concrete.
That's a safety issue. I mean, the point of encasing in concrete is so that if somebody's doing water main work or something in the area, they're not gonna strike the conduit. And it's usually a utility requirement unless it's on private property, but, I mean, if you're providing primary circuits to feed the development,
We don't do it now, so town doesn't enforce it, so.
So we would deny that waiver?
Well, I would say that because it's in the regulations, that you should grant the waiver, but because the utility companies don't require it, and the town hasn't been enforcing it.
I don't know, I mean, any of the utilities I
That's
have.
been my experience. I mean, some towns are different, but in Walpole,
Right.
they haven't been requiring it to be in concrete, so. The crossing, if it's in a street, we'd put the concrete, but if it's on the edge of the roadway, or usually it's on the side of the street where the sidewalk isn't, it'll be on the edge of, it's not in the pavement, it's on the edge of the.
So the reason they encase it in concrete is that if there's other road work going on in the utilities, that they're not gonna strike it.
Okay.
There's a protection around it, other than a plastic conduit. I feel it's a safety hazard.
Other board members?
I mean, how else would you prevent the strike like Drew's describing? I mean, you're gonna pack it in something, right?
It's
You're not
packed
just
in,
gonna
it's
put the-
packed in sand with a caution tape, and it's backfilled. But it's inspected by the utility companies before we do that. I don't think the town has, I don't think they've been out to
Town engineer
inspect
said.
anything that we've done relative to those utilities, electrical and cable and.
The town engineer have comments on this?
They haven't brought anything up to us.
I didn't see any.
And I'm also looking at the peer review. I don't see any comments on this one either.
If this is if this is a waiver that the board's kind of on the fence on, we could hold, and I can go back to Carl and ask him specifically, if that's helpful.
Let's do that. Let's find out how they're doing other subdivisions, and whatever other subdivisions are doing. That's because, as Drew pointed out, it's a safety concern. Next one is don't see the applicant's reason for the waiver. Just says minimum outside diameter of roadways within turnarounds on both permanent cul-de-sacs and temporary dead-end streets shall be 88 feet. But there's no comments about
What's the waiver for?
why a waiver is necessary.
It's right here.
If he doesn't have a reason, I'd say no.
Yeah.
Not saying what they're seeking either.
Yeah.
What's that?
Waiting
Not
for
saying
what?
what they're seeking.
Right, so. You just move on from that one.
I'm not sure, I think that, is that part of the, that might just be kind of a typo, I think that's part of the early one, isn't it?
Just going off what you submitted.
I think that just might be a spreadsheet error there. It's all part of that earlier group of
Dead-end
items.
street.
That's just the way we
Lot turnaround, unit diameter, 82 feet.
It's the one on hold.
There is a
I have to take a look at it.
88 feet.
Yeah, it should be back, it should be
So, I think there's a few,
item D
yeah.
in the earlier one. Because it's slightly different.
part of the roadway one.
Part of the roadway one, yeah. Yeah, it definitely looks out of place, so I'm gonna have to take a look at the subdivision rules and regs.
Yeah, I think maybe it's intended on the first page of the waiver list, at the very
Yeah.
bottom, with regard to dead-end streets, the third item in the waiver column is to allow turnaround pavement diameter of 82 feet,
Right.
and this one appears to, the requirement for that isn't really set forth in the description column, but I think this is the description of that particular waiver, if I'm
You know what, I think it's,
Easy to-
I think as he said, it's a typo, and I don't think we need to do anything with it, because there's no even section referenced on that for this.
So Mr. Chairman, we'll make a correction on that and resubmit it. But it does appear that it should be in the dead-end street section.
No, but if I'm reading it wrong, one says it should be 88 feet, the other is 104 feet. Unless that's a different thing.
Well, one of them is street line and one of them is pavement.
No, line diameter.
Oh, permanent colors.
Outside line, street line
Yeah,
diameter.
I'll review that, but they should run together. They should be together.
Okay, well,
You held that item anyway, right?
Yep.
we'll get clarification on that. Okay,
I'd have to look at it.
these holds are gonna hold things up. Okay, next one. Now we're looking at the Walpole zoning bylaws. This is for authorization of a temporary building or structure for greater than 180 days to allow a 36 by 10 construction trailer office for a period of 24 months during construction of the project without a special permit. I think that the zoning board sits for the, we'd be the one issuing a special permit on something like this. I feel comfortable granting this waiver. Anybody else? Bob, you good?
Yeah, I don't know if there, do we need to be more specific about where you want to put this, or on the site, or is it something that's going to move throughout the process?
It may, but we don't have any objections to if you want to condition of acceptance of the building commissioner or whatever to have that discretion. Usually it's at the beginning of the site, so it would be on the
Yeah.
Brook Lane side. But maybe there's another more beneficial location when we get the site work done.
I think in the past, how this has been on different decisions, it's been something that kind of falls under like the construction management plan with the building commissioner, so.
Okay,
it's
that
something
makes sense.
probably- Yeah.
Yes, Jack? Yep.
I would suggest that you require to hook up the sewer, because you don't need a porta-john next to a trailer for umpteen months. And if I live in the neighborhood, I don't want a porta-john at this, right by my house. So if they're gonna connect the sewer, you connect all trailers to sewer. Because it would make much better than having an outhouse right next to your trailer.
Again, I think that would be under the construction management plan, how that would be done.
If that's something the board wanted to do, you could condition that as well.
I don't think it's necessary to, I guess we can waive it with a condition that trailers be connected to the sewer. But
I don't know if we've done that in the past, though, so. but-
again, I feel that's under the construction management plan. That's where, that's where that would be finalized. Okay. Next one. This setbacks. So allow building to be nearer to the line of the street than the required setback distance or nearer to the sideline of the lot than the required sideline setback, and nearer to the rear depth of the lot, the required rear yard depth based on the chart for general residence. And the applicant is seeking allow a front setback distance for lot 11 to have a minimum street setback of 10 feet.
Mr. Chairman, I will say that the rear yard setback has been changed so that we will have to amend that rear yard setback.
Amended to what?
When we move the building from the side, depends on whether you call it rear or side, but this would be 10 feet on that side.
Well,
I'll have to go
it's not,
build.
you've submitted this as your waiver request for 15.
Right,
And-
but we also made the reservation to be able to revise it as the hearing progresses, so we're making that, we're exercising that reservation.
Okay, well, your original plan,
This is a preliminary,
the goal of a public hearing would probably be to have it moving from 15 to a little bit greater, but instead you've moved it closer,
yes,
which is
that's the way it is.
it's not good. It's, detrimental to the neighbors.
It's not worse than what it was before.
What's that?
It's what was on the plan before, that you approved, with multi-unit buildings there.
Right,
So
but
we've
this-
decreased the number of units along that property line.
But they're
and-
closer now, so.
No, they're the same distance as what was
You-
before.
You
So,
said 15.
I'll
Your
review it.
original request was 15.
Preliminary.
Okay.
And if you note at the end of it, that we reserve the right to amend this request for waivers, so we're going to exercise that discretion.
Well,
But
I guess the way I'm looking at it is, this is the waiver you requested, and
Okay. I'm going to change it.
it's like hitting a moving target. That's not, town council, they requested 15. It doesn't, and then we hear that, well, I'm going to change it. Well, why are we going through this whole process if they just want to change it?
Well, what is it?
Well, it's what we're showing on the plan. So my general approach on the dimensional stuff, as opposed to the things that are more programmatic, is the dimensional stuff is stuff you see on the plan. This is the plan. That's what Lou is suggesting. Those are things there. I mean, the dimensional stuff is 40B. My general approach, and I don't want to speak for George's approach, but we've both been doing it for a while. I generally just waive the dimensional stuff to build what's shown on the plan. That's obviously what we're requesting. If you want to go to exact numbers, they're on the plan. So,
I do it kind of differently. I like to specify what it is that's being granted, and then I'll usually have a catch-all, if anything inconsistent on the plan, the decision shall control. So, I don't have a problem with it one way or another, as long as it ends up getting specified what exactly is being sought, and then you act on those waiver requests. I wouldn't go by the plan, because then,
Changes.
You would not go by the plan?
Yeah, I would specify it what you're granting, and then I typically will have a catch-all, which I'm sure the original permit had. To the extent that the plan shows something different, the decision shall control,
The decision shall control,
shall be control what it is, what the approval is. So that, in other words, if the plan ends up showing, because somebody didn't notice it, a 10-foot setback, but you only allowed a different setback, what you allowed is what controls. So,
and what we could do is we could,
I don't have a problem really with the applicant amending, revising as it goes through the permit process on the waiver list, but it should be specified.
we'll give you lot by lot if you want.
I mean, because sometimes you don't need them on certain lots. You don't need the waiver. You can say, the setback is waived to be, 4 feet on lot X, Y, Z. It just depends. But I would specify in the decision, which incorporates the waivers, what exactly you're granting. Then there's no ambiguity if somebody's looking at the plan and the plan happens to show something else.
okay? And so, right now, the applicant requested a rear yard setback of 15 feet, and now they're showing 10 feet. So if we grant the 15 feet,
He'll be in violation if he does 10, but
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd almost say this is a situation where the applicant probably needs to revise their waivers, which was something we discussed at the last meeting. Yeah, there was also that comment about the grass strip that apparently is now in flux as well, so I don't think these are the most up-to-date.
I'm concerned too, when we get later, I saw things about wetlands, and I know the original on-the-ground situation with regard to wetlands was very different than I would assume now.
No, it's
So
the same.
I don't, would the same waivers apply now?
There's no change in what we've done in the wetlands. It's not an issue in the remand either. I saw that same note too, and, we could certainly add it, but the original project, we're not, there's no more steeper waivers than what was already approved. The only reason we didn't put it on here. I don't want to jump ahead, though. Look, we'll give you the exact numbers on the setback stuff, and if for some reason we miss one, and that's exactly the way you write it, again, I'd do it differently than George, but I'm not criticizing the way he does it. If we had to do a minor amendment at some point, then that's what we do, but we'll try and give you an accurate
I'd
number.
recommend holding this and let them let them revise
but
it.
you know what, there's a concern that we're under a very tight time constraint. And what we're seeing tonight is that this waiver list really isn't up to date, and it needs to be revised. And so you need to go back and revise it. We've been here for, tonight going through this. Our goal was to go through the waivers. We're having a problem because the waivers don't line up with what's there.
You've held things too. I don't want to get argumentative with you, but you've held things as well. So we're not, we have plenty of time
We got
left
peer
here.
review moving before, we had things moving. We've moved this process along.
And we have not delayed it one bit.
Okay, So the problem I'm having is that, we have a May deadline for this.
Right.
And right now, we allocated tonight as the night to go through the waivers.
Yep.
And what I'm seeing is that the waivers, you have to do work on them. And I think that we're going to be coming back. We weren't planning on coming back for another night to work on these waivers, but we're going to have additional time on this. And I think it would be reasonable if we had an extension of time so that we had another 30 days to get this done.
I don't see why that would require another 30 days. We're certainly prepared to be reasonable and work with you on this. I don't see another 30 days as being necessary.
So we have to, tonight's meeting was specifically to do the waivers. There was nothing else on the agenda for this. And what has happened is, we found that, we can't do our work because the waivers aren't done properly.
We're going to disagree with the characterization. There are a couple of items in here that we have to update, for sure.
That
But
means we have
it's
to
not
have
like
another-
you've made final decisions on some of these either. So we're all, on both sides, we're still going through a process. You have a month. I think that we should be able to get our work done.
Town council,
within the
do you
month.
think we need more? This was the meeting to do the waivers, and we're not going to get that. We're not going to get it done.
Yeah, it would be nice to have be able to have another public hearing session, and then a little time extended beyond that. So that-
We could see in 2 weeks
Time to look at it.
and take care of all these things.
Yeah, no, we have another zoning board meeting for other cases. Tonight's meeting was specifically for this. Sure. You want to pile on?
Good at that. Okay. I'm gonna point out to everybody that it's gonna be understood. I know I'm gonna hear from lawyers that that's not right. You approving a subdivision. You approving individual lots. It should be nailed down to exactly where all the bounds are. Has to be on the plan, because these are gonna be sold as individual. There's no, so if in front of my planning board, every one of these lots would already been laid out. Now, if you're looking for waivers, and I know this is a kind of a mix of planning board and 40B, is to me, I would think at a minimum that each house has to be shown on there, and that's what you're gonna prove. You go by house 1, house 2, house 3, you can't give a waiver if you don't know what each house is gonna look like. Someone's gonna buy that, so they're gonna have to know in the decision exactly where my bounds are and where I can put my house. That's the only way you can do it. We're dealing with individual lots. We're not dealing with a condo complex where it's owned by everybody. We're dealing with 20, however many there are here, individual lots. So you gotta treat them like that. I don't see that on the plan that you could tell a land surveyor, go out there. So if I was gonna buy, pick a lot, lot 10, I just see it on a plan. I don't see meets and bounds and everything you should have, nor do I see the house located where it should be. So if you're gonna grant waivers on side yards, rear yards, size of lots, every lot has to be tied down. Just think of like doing a Form A or something like that, every one. So when you guys finish your decision, each lot,
You should look at that one, then, Jack. On the key sheet, there are a lot, just like a subdivision. Everything has meets and bounds.
no, it doesn't. Where's,
That's the,
yeah, I don't know how to read plans, Lou, I'm sorry. But look at 7, where is the meets and bounds? There is not.
it's on the key sheet. You don't bring that sheet because then.
I don't bring the sheet. I don't bring my, GLM should have been here too, because we're doing waivers based upon plans, and for him not to be here.
Don't worry, it's on the plan. Whatever you're talking about is on the plan.
Yeah, okay, then I guess we can't find it. But all I'm saying is, if you go grant these waivers, I know that that's allowed, but I would tie each house. This house, we agree, this. You can't have floating back and forth, and you can't have floating lot lines.
I'm tending to say close to the same thing, that you want it specified. I mean, that's what I said, you're granting, you are or are not granting a setback waiver to a certain extent or not, and you want it specified. And if one lot is different than another, you want to identify them. You know, what's being granted, some may not need it, I don't know.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Or if they all need it, if they all need a certain footage setback waiver, then specify that. You just want it accurate, what it is that they require.
For every single lot?
Yes. And it may be the same for every lot, I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, it seems that 6B1, the next column down, does say rear yard setback of 10 feet in the general residence zone. 6B1C, I'm not sure what that 6B1C refers to in the zoning, I don't remember. But we do request a 10-foot rear yard setback for general residence districts for, under 6B1 of the zoning bylaws. So there's another, I'd have to check, that must refer to a specific building. I'll have to pick that building out, whichever that one is. So, like, for example, I have allow front setback on lot 11 to have a minimum street line setback of 10 feet. So I specifically identified that particular lot. I think that's near the cul-de-sac, I think. So we'll make more specific refinements to this, but it is a 10-foot rear yard setback, so we have requested that as.
You also requested 15 right above it. So
Right, well, that's what I'm saying. I'll have to see where that, what that applies to. It may be a particular lot that I'm not aware of. Could be rear as a typographical error, I don't know. I'll check that out, but the 10-foot setback, rear yard setback is what's requested.
Doesn't. Maximum lot coverage for buildings is 30%, total impervious 50%. You're not requesting a waiver for that part, is that correct? Yes.
So are we holding the setback?
No, I think, you know, I think this goes to my point, that we can approve these requests and, you know, the waiver that's been requested as it's shown here, or they can come back with a revised plan and give us time to have another meeting for this, or we can just approve it tonight and let them sort it out. Bob, am I getting wound up?
Oh, I'm not going to characterize that. I guess my suggestion would be the applicants agreed to do a lot by lot, you know, identifying what specific dimensional waiver they're requesting for each lot. And to the extent the board is willing to grant those, then it'll just become essentially an attachment to the decision, or an exhibit to the decision, and that would be how it could be incorporated on a lot-specific basis. I, you know, agree it would be nice to have gotten through all of this, but I don't know that we're really in a position to, given the time constraints, and I'm not sure about the remand order, whether we can even go beyond it.
Right, no,
Unless-
you could by agreement, because we would file something,
Okay.
but it requires the applicant's agreement.
Right. So I think that would be my suggestion, is to get that list, and then maybe it could just be, if Patrick's working on a draft decision, that lot by lot requests could be put in there, and we could review it along with the rest of the decision when it's.
Yeah, I think this goes back to what we talked about. I think those, you know, section 6B1C, table 6B1, those two waivers, I think the applicant needs to revise those and.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I think they need to prepare like a a sheet that shows on a lot-by-lot basis what dimensional waivers they're asking for, and then whatever those are, to the extent that we agree to them, they can just be attached to the decision
Yeah.
as an exhibit.
Part of the waivers.
Waiver for
Yeah.
everything we need.
It's fine.
Makes sense.
Okay. So on the 6B1C, this is about the references Lot 11, minimum setback of 10 feet. I'd be in favor of approving this waiver and letting them sort it, figure it out.
Well, I don't know, but I guess my suggestion is let them come to us with basically a table on a lot-by-lot basis, because there's some ambiguity here. There's one section that says a rear setback of 15, another one that says 10 feet. It's not clear whether that is meant to apply to different lots. To me, it's a little unclear. So, I think we want to not, I guess my instinct is not to draw a line in the sand and just say, you're going to have to live with it, because that's not going to hold up at the HAC, in my opinion. And that will be without any ability to condition the project, and I don't want to put us in that position.
But it's actually interesting, if we grant them the waivers that they've requested, what are they going to appeal the fact that we granted waivers that they requested?
Well, I think they've asked in the course of tonight's hearing to, make a modification to their request, and I think they have the right to do that as an applicant.
Okay. So, for those two waivers, 6B1C, they have, that's on the applicant to work on, same as 6B1, to work on those. Next page, 6C11. It says, allow rear deck encroachment up to 48 inches beyond that permitted into the setbacks. So,
So I had a question and a clarification on that. Looks like the requirement is that you can encroach 48 inches into the setbacks for an uncovered or an unenclosed porch. And is your request to go an additional 48 inches? Or are you just requesting this because the rear lot is you're already requesting a waiver for that? Because the waiver says allow rear decks to encroach up to 48 inches beyond that permitted into the setbacks. So 48 inches is already permitted into the setback, and I'm wondering if you're asking for an additional 48 inches on top of the 48 that's already allowed, or if you're just asking for this waiver because the rear yard setback is not
There's
compliant.
two parts of this. One is like a front door. If there's a stairs, if it's uncovered, you can go into your setback, it's not. But if you put a roof on it or some sort of a nice ornamental portico or something, then you're not allowed to do that. So that's to cover us in the event of some design issues relative to the streetscape aesthetically, whether or not we want to add some roofs or roof lines above the stairs, front stairs, as we develop the project. In the rear decks are kind of Walpole does it kind of uniquely, and I'll have to talk to the building inspector, but I was under the impression that if you wanted to go more than 48 inches into the rear yard, then you needed it wasn't permitted, it was a zoning violation. So I'll have to get specific with him as to, generally speaking, we would like to go more, 48 inches into the, beyond what's permitted, but it's something that we can discuss in terms of what particular dimension would be allowable under the zoning.
Well, because as I'm reading it, you're allowed to go 48 inches into the setback without any waiver. And then,
Yeah, so
but
if
you're
we-
asking for a waiver to go, and my question is, are you asking for a waiver to go what would essentially be 96 inches into
Well,
the setback?
No,
Or
I
is
think
it just the
what we're
48?
requesting is, we're allowed to go 4 feet, an extra foot or whatever would be nice to have, so you have a nice little deck, or patios don't apply, but decks would fall into this category. So we want to be able to go a little bit beyond 48 inches into the setback. Not that we want to go 48 inches more, just we want to go beyond the 48 inches, if it's possible. Again, it's just a feature that we'd like to add to the homes, but it's,
No, I guess the one concern I would have is that if you're asking for a 10-foot setback in the rear, and then a 96-inch deck is essentially leaves a 2-foot setback from the property line to the edge of
yeah,
the deck.
I agree with you.
That's not what we want.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think that's what our intention
Okay.
is there.
So I guess in that table that we were talking about in terms of dimensional relief
We'll put
requested, if
that-
you could identify
we'll
specifically.
put it more concise for the board to
Thanks.
review.
Should we put this in the same category as the last two?
Yeah, the,
Will be addressed in this appendix, this lot by lot appendix.
so that's back on the applicant then.
Yep.
Okay, next one. Real estate sign of 10 feet, 10 square feet or less in surface area for property current for sale, rent, or lease. Allow a real estate sign of not more than 30 square feet in surface area. Guys okay with that?
Yeah, I don't have any objection to that.
5 by 6 sign, okay.
As long as it's capped at 30.
It's less than a sheet of plywood. Okay, so we okay granting that waiver? Okay, general bylaws for stormwater. So I think there were comments from Landis on this.
Yes. I don't know.
Carl's.
This is dated yesterday. Have you had a chance to review these comments from the Conservation Commission?
Well, we received them today around, I don't know, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, so we've looked at them briefly, but
Yeah.
we'll say that we've, the project was designed according to the stormwater management guidelines issued by the Commonwealth. These guidelines, the project was approved on several occasions by Conservation Commission and the Department of Environmental Protection. I believe we're in compliance with most of the requirements under the bylaw, but in recent months, the regulations, not necessarily the bylaw, the regulations that were created by the Conservation Commission have increased some stormwater requirements for the amount of rainfall to be counted, which we're not in compliance with, and we won't be complying with.
So the big one on this is for, if we just go through the general bylaws for stormwater, we also have to remember that, I think town council, we talked about, we're still working under the old whatever the previous bylaws
What was in
were.
effect at the time of the application?
So, some of these new regulations where NOAA Atlas 14 precipitation frequencies, that's new and does not apply to this. Of course, for people that have lived there, probably be a good thing, but
Right.
I don't think we can pull in the new regulations because that's not what this was filed under. Does anybody have any comments on these waivers? I do have one on, it's actually on the, so, first one, waiver applicability to this development, stormwater management design shall be in compliance with Mass DEP. You guys want to waive that one?
I mean, it sounds like it was already approved under the old regs.
The second one, stormwater management plans. They'll be in compliance, I would say waive that. Protected resource areas, and this is the first one. Again, this is, they're going to be protected under the Massachusetts laws. Bordering lands, the buffer zone. Don't think that was a concern that Landis had. The next one is,
I thought I remembered in the original permit that there were local requirements noted, but.
We did agree for this next one here, the no alteration zone, to restore an area that's the 25-foot.
yeah, I haven't got to, I'm still on the previous one, section 1.3, bordering lands. I think
Yeah, that's what the
we're okay
wetlands-
with that one,
Yeah.
waive. This next one, Landis specifically said, this one should not be waived. And the no alteration zone is not applicable. The buffer zone is regulated in accordance with Mass Wetland Protection Act. So the recommendation is to deny that waiver. That's from Landis. This is on the second page of her memo.
Mr. Chairman, I will say that they've already agreed to a restoration plan that if you've been on the site, there's the 25-foot buffer zone that they seek to protect. There's really nothing there. So we've agreed, previously have agreed and have incorporated into this plan as well to restore that area for a 25-foot buffer zone and to plant it and restore it to, so that it has some use. It's on the plan, a supplemental sheet that, again, was previously approved on the applications that the Concom.
Right, and I think that's why it's been requested that we do not, the board should not approve this waiver request 4.14 because of the agreement that you already
Yeah,
have.
I would just say condition it
Okay.
based on what,
That's fine. Deny and then reference the
Plan.
the agreement that
Right.
you already have.
right, great, thank you.
Okay, deny that, and then with a condition.
Which one are you on? Section one?
Last page, top, section 141, and that lines up with Landis's memo,
Okay.
where she talks about, on the second page
Got
of
it,
her
yeah.
memo,
Yeah.
the board, her exact words are, the board should not approve the waiver request, 1.41.
I'm just not sure what ended up getting said is consistent with the other two, but, all right.
So that would be denied with a condition referencing the agreement.
That's what she said she wanted to reference.
Okay, next one, on to the fees.
They waived it, but I don't know that they wanted to.
I'll wait for town council. What's that?
No?
Yeah.
I'm assuming those are application fees there. I don't know what other fees they would have under the wetland bylaw.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, no, I was going to say the first one appears to be an application fee, whereas the rest appear to be associated with, you know, public works related stuff.
So, the first one, actually,
This could actually be consistent with the very first
the bylaws, yeah.
It's application. It's waived. If it's not, it's not.
Where are we now?
232 fees.
Yeah, I would waive that.
What's that, town
I
council?
would waive that for sure.
The first one,
Yeah,
for the wetlands?
yes.
Okay. So that one, we could waive, but all the other ones deny?
The other ones are totally different types of things.
Let's just go through those. Water entrance fees, we've had letters from the Board of Sewer and Water Commissioners requesting that we do not deny, that we do not waive that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
You know, I know what the position of the Sewer and Water Board will be, but I know for certain that the town has negotiated reduced connection fees with various other projects in town, down to, 40, 50% beyond what's required. And so we would be expected to get the same treatment that other projects in town have received.
I think residential projects, they're all pretty much standard, and I haven't seen that they've waived any residential projects.
I can just tell you that for sure, that they have any of the buildings in the center of town have reduced connection fees associated with those projects. So, we're expected to be treated in the same manner that conventional projects are. And so we would expect that to carry forward into this project.
Okay. Well, I think that these are all single lots, and you're treating it like a subdivision, so I would look at it the same way. And the Board of Sewer and Water has said the same thing,
Well,
so.
Well, okay.
Is anybody in favor of waiving the water entry fee?
No.
Hearing nobody, so that one would be denied. Sewer entrance fees, anybody in favor of waiving that? Anybody want to deny it?
Deny.
Okay, everybody deny. Inflow infiltration fees, same thing, anybody, we've denied the other ones?
Quite frankly, we filed litigation against the town for the I&I fees to be inappropriate, and we've received a 10-year exemption from any fees that might occur relative to the I&I fee.
Who's we?
We, Wall Street Development Corp. So I would say that fee, it's not in place anymore because as part of our settlement, that they remove it from their fees under the sewer connection fees.
Well, if that's,
So we need a waiver then.
So,
then why are you asking for a waiver for it?
because at any point in time, the sewer commissioners could,
So if you have an agreement already, then that's going to supersede this, if you have an agreement, but at this point, I don't feel, I'm comfortable waiving a fee that the sewer and water commissioners have held for everybody else.
so we'll.
I'm not
we'll just-
familiar with the two, if you could provide.
Excuse me?
I said I'm unfamiliar with that agreement, so maybe if the board had confirmation as well, just because.
Right. Well,
Does anybody want to waive that? No. Okay, so that one's denied. Finally, building permit fees, all associated building permits, fees with this one. We have not denied this on, we have not waived this on any other projects.
Just asking for the affordables to be,
Okay? on the affordables, and we haven't waived that on other ones previously.
You're not in favor of more affordable housing?
Oh, very much in favor of affordable, quality housing
Yeah,
with
right.
people, so that one also, I would not be in favor of approving. Okay, so that one, anybody want to waive that one? Okay, so that one is also denied. So there's a number of things that the applicant has to get done before our next meeting. I thought this was going to be the meeting that we would spend and finish up the waivers, but there's work that needs to be done. We're also going to, we said, hold the bit about the dead-end streets. It seems like board members had concerns about that. Also, the other one that's being held is, everything else is on the applicant, so, okay. Lauren, when's another time we can have a meeting?
I think we said that May 10th would be another good date. I believe that's a Wednesday. Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. Thursday, May 11th.
Thursday, May 11th. It's unusual to have a meeting on a Thursday. We were hoping to have this wrapped up tonight. Can people make Thursday, May 11th?
Oh, we have a hand.
Mr. Chair. You got a question from the public, John?
Sure, yeah, Mr. Conroy.
Regarding the 11th, I know you're under the gun. Unfortunately, I won't be here, because we'll be at my daughter's wedding, and if you can do it another time, we'll be gone that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I mean, if we've come this far, I'd hate to miss this meeting, and I don't really feel like driving up from Connecticut. So if I'm asking, I'm pleading, John, but just, if you have an opportunity to
Well,
do
let's
something else.
let's take a look at the schedule. We can't do the week, I think there was a problem with the week before, because we didn't want to get, town meeting's the week before, so that.
It's next Monday and Wednesday.
Okay. And we already have something, what's the?
The 15th?
We have something, we have a full schedule on the
Yeah.
15th for other meetings.
When's the deadline for the decision on this again?
26th.
The 26th?
May 8th, Monday, May 8th.
Can people do Monday, May 8th? George, are you available Monday, May 8th?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, I appreciate that. I know you're trying to wrap up questions. A couple things, well, first off, a couple comments. I keep hearing them going back, you approve something based upon a site plan, not necessarily a subdivision. That's why subdivisions are different, because on condo complexes, it's up to the individual. Town doesn't rule on how you get around. But the other thing is, you gotta remember, on a condo complex, you have a lot more parking. So that's kinda, these are individual lots. And I'm going back to the lots, I would expect to see every lot have how many square feet, like you guys are granting a variance, so to speak, for every lot. So if whatever they want for variance, in my opinion, it should be on there. Next comment I have is Brook Street, where it goes off their property. I assume whatever you do here tonight doesn't bound Brook Street to anything.
We are not getting involved with that you're talking about the cul-de-sac on Brook Street?
I'm just talking about once you come off his property onto town property, that's something else.
Yeah.
So anything you...
And, by the way, we're not doing anything.
No, yeah, I'm just not saying it's gonna carry over, because you don't have the ruling on that. Now, my next item is, I had sent some stuff, a question, keep hearing the waivers. What's in, is that it, no more?
That's what it's supposed to be. And, yeah,
So it's
and by the way, the waivers, this was our night of the meeting for waivers, so.
No, I understand that, and I think I assume you all got it. I have a bunch of waivers, and I went through the subdivision control that weren't asked for. So,
Anything not specifically granted is denied.
okay,
That'll be put in the permit.
okay, because there's a bunch in there that's gonna send this to a tailspin. And I'll mention two of them that affect the plan, and can they, if I do mention it, does they get a chance to revise it for next
Because
time?
he's gonna, yeah, they've already said that they want another crack at it, and,
All right, so basically, this stays with me?
yeah,
Okay,
that's a smart
all right,
move.
and then it gets launched when it should be launched. Okay, I appreciate that, on that, so I'll just hold these, and, I guess that was all I had, so I don't think you want me to go through them anyway, given that it's a long night for you.
We've had work.
Yeah,
It's
me
only
too.
9 o'clock. We've been at this for 2 hours and 15 minutes. Mrs. Campbell, good evening.
I'm sorry, Jackie, you're done. Yes, good evening, Kathy Campbell, 3135 Burns Avenue. I just had a question. At the last meeting, there was several things from the engineer and Tetra Tech that needed to be corrected on the plans. When will that be addressed?
Have you revised the plan to have those corrections made?
Well, I don't know what corrections Mrs. Campbell is referring to, but we've had comments from the town engineer and Tetra Tech that we're addressing, and you'll have revised plans maybe by the end of the week.
See, we really should have that revised plan so that when it comes time for approval of, or denial of the plan, we can reference something.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, so those should be made.
By next week?
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, so we'll continue this until
I think he asked.
May
May
8th?
7 o'clock.
Monday, May 8th, 7 o'clock, here at Town Hall. Any further discussion? So moved by Bob. Second by Drew. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of continuing until that date, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay. We're not going to do any minutes because we've got 2 board members that are not here tonight, and that's it. Does anybody have anything else?
Thank you.
George, you good?
Yep, thank you.
Patrick, anything? All good? Lauren?
Just motion to adjourn.
What's that?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, made by Mr. Hegler, second by Drew. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so carried. Good night, everybody.